Tell me about your writing process, because I've said this multiple times, and I'm going to try not to say it too many times. I think you're a phenomenal songwriter. And I know that that's something that you have crafted, because that's the only way to become a phenomenal songwriter. So tell me about your writing style and how you come about all that kind of stuff.
Well, a lot of times I'll write in the car, like, Why Do I Cry? I came up with while I was driving. I hear something in my head, and then I put it down on guitar and just kind of build around, the point I'm trying to get across. Learning a lot right now about writing.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things that a fellow writers ever told me was Charlie Shafter. He told me that I had to learn to write without complaining. And women have a hard time doing that because we get lost in our emotions, and we're all just like, feelings. Well, people want to hear a story too,
Right.
know. And I thought that was a brilliant piece of advice, and I listened to him, and that has really helped me with writing lately, and they're just coming out constantly. Once I learned to do that and stop getting in my feelings about everything, my writing got a lot better.
Yeah, that's great advice. Charlie is a phenomenal songwriter.
Yeah, I agree.
He is
very good.
He is recognized by a lot of people in the industry, but hasn't ever seemed to really be too interested in cultivating any kind of big time career.
Yeah.
I think he could if he really expended the effort. I know that he's a phenomenal songwriter, and I know that there are a lot of people that hold him in that regard. So any advice that he gives out is probably really good advice to anybody.
That's why I go to him for advice a lot of times.
That's the way to do it.
If I'm ever having a problem or a question, sometimes I'll just ask him because he responds, and it's always a good answer.
Yeah.
Helpful.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm lucky to have people like that in my life.
Yeah. There's a lot of people like that around here that are good for that, for sure. Joey Green was one of them. Joey Green's a really, really good songwriter.
Yeah, I totally agree.
He crafts songs together in a way that is very, very accessible to a much larger market than what he puts them to, which I think is great. It's a great way to go about it. He's very pop savvy within his Americana style.
Yeah.
And if you try to pigeonhole him into a genre, he'll wiggle his way out of it and do something else.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what he's been doing with his career for the last 10 or so years.
I think we're similar in that aspect.
Yeah.
My songs are all across the board.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you probably take influence from a lot of different stuff. Like what did you grow up listening to as a music lover?
Well, when I was a kid, my mom always played Carly Simon, Stevie Nicks, and Fleetwood Mac, and and Heart, and just really cool stuff like that, and Elton John, the Allman Brothers, so that was an influence that wasn't really an option; it just happened. And so when I was the last time I can remember, like, trying to get out and listen to something was the Dixie Chicks when I was about 10 years old. I wanted a Dixie Chicks CD so bad, and my mom bought me their first one, and I probably know every single Dixie Chicks song that they've ever released.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a huge Dixie Chicks fan. Yeah. I know they didn't that writing style, they were a huge influence on me, but I know they didn't really write a lot of their stuff or any of it that I know of. But Patty Griffin wrote a bunch of songs for them, and I didn't know that, but I was in love with those songs. And so she was an influence through the Dixie Chicks on me. And, of course, then there was the worship music at church. I would help lead worship on Wednesdays and Sundays. It wasn't so much an influence on my personal music, though. And then after that, I only know what I've reached out and listened to myself, that I've tried to dig out myself. I haven't been taught a whole lot about music in general.
Right.
Uninformed.
Right.
But I do my best to do my research and, listen to as much new stuff as possible. But yeah, those early on, those artists that I mentioned earlier were a big influence, and then as well as the Dixie Chicks and a whole mix of things.
Well, I think the gospel scene and growing up singing in church may not have influenced your writing style so much, but it's definitely influenced your singing style.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And you pulled a lot from that. It was very natural to hear you just belt out some stuff. And so that's really cool. Because I always wish that I came up that way. Because I didn't start singing until late high school, maybe even after high school, seriously. But I've been playing instruments since I was like 5. So I always wished that I had been put in choir or put in something like that,
or church, or that's where I learned to sing.
That. Yeah. Well, my church growing up wasn't one of those kinds of churches. So
ours was, you sang, and you didn't hesitate either. And
ours was one of those sit down and be quiet and listen kind of churches.
Hey, those are fine too.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know. But I always wish that I had that background. There's a lot of my favorite artists and singers, local and otherwise, have that same story where that's the one thing across the board of artists that I genuinely think are phenomenal vocalists. Almost every single one of them came up singing in choirs or church or with their grandparents, at the piano or something like that. And it became second nature to sing as much as to talk. And I'm still trying to find that for myself because I feel awkward when I sing.
You're a phenomenal singer. Well, and I'm picky about guy singers a lot of times, but you've always impressed me with your music.
I appreciate that. I work on it a lot because it's something that I feel very self-conscious about, singing and doing that. So I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot to me. But I don't know. You're always harder on yourself, I guess, than other people would be. But I don't know. I'm pretty picky about my own voice.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So did you consciously slide into the Americana singer-songwriter world, or was there ever a time where maybe you wanted to try something else?
I don't think I was ever fully invested in the country music scene. That's where this whole thing kind of started. A couple years ago, I started singing with a guy named Kirk Baxley, and he really wanted to break into the country scene. And so I was gigging around with them and opening for like Aaron Watson, Pat. I don't know if we've opened for Pat Green. We opened for Stoney LaRue, Wade Bowen. All these people that I see now, my peers, I used to open for them with Kirk singing harmonies. And so that really got me familiar with what was going on. And I was just there to sing harmonies. I wasn't trying to shove my way into or wiggle my way into the country music scene.
Sure.
It was just exposed to me. But my music, I don't think, some of it does sound country, but a lot of it is, it's like you can't put a genre on it. And that is Americana.
Yeah.
And Americana is American music, and it's anything American influenced, which mine is. And that's just where it falls into, period. And I don't want to be, I like the genre Americana because it's not tied down to one sound.
Yeah.
With country, it is.
Right.
Or with jazz or with blues or rock. But with Americana, it gives you variety. And that's what I want in my music is variety. I want to write for the song and not for the genre or the scene that I'm in.
Yeah.
So that just happened naturally, I think.
Yeah. Well, you've gravitated towards that in an organic way, it seems. And it comes out of you in an organic way. It never seems forced. It never seems like maybe she wrote that song because she thought people would like it. It never comes across. To me, it never comes across that way. There's a lot of soul, and there's a lot of emotion and feeling in what you're doing and what you're giving people. And that's hard to do, especially just by yourself.